Hello and welcome back, future scientists. I'm Mr. K with Mississippi Public Broadcasting. We're going to continue looking over those state test review questions. So teacher, if you could, go ahead and pass these worksheets out to your class. Y'all take 10 or 15 minutes to work on them. When you're ready for the answers, come back to me, unpause the video, and I'll do the questions on the board behind me. All right, I'm sure that didn't give y'all any problem, but just in case it did, y'all try your best to follow along, and we'll look at those questions on the board behind me. So let's go ahead and get started and see what we're looking at. All right, this one says, which statement best describes the ecological succession that takes place after a severe wildfire? The best answer choice here, I think, is B. So this says secondary succession takes place after a forest fire because the affected land once supported life. Remember that secondary succession happens in places that have already supported life. It's only primary succession if it's brand new land, if there's never been any life on it. During a forest fire, if there's a wildfire, that means that there's trees and plants that are burning. It might burn everything down, but the soil stays intact, and in those locations, the land once supported life. So B is definitely our best answer choice here. If it's a wildfire, it's usually secondary succession. Great work. Let's move on to the next one. The chart below provides information about 4 organisms that live in a Mississippi pond ecosystem. Which model best shows the flow of energy between these organisms in the pond ecosystem? The best answer choice here is A. Okay, let's remember that 90% of food chains, the energy starts from the sun. Okay, so most of the time, anytime you're making a food chain, you want to start with sunlight. That's where the energy on the earth is really coming from. So things that don't start with sunlight aren't going to be right. So we can automatically get rid of these two. Okay, from there, we want to move through the food chain in order. So sunlight starts the food chain. The first type of organism that is in our food chain after sunlight is going to be a producer. Out of these, algae is a producer. Both A and C have algae there, so that doesn't really help us. We're going to need to go on to the next one. You can see here that C says that herons is the next in the food chain. But if we come up here and read the description of herons, it says that they like to feed on fish. So that means that herons should come after the fish on the food chain. And that's how we know that A is the correct answer. The algae uses the sunlight to make energy. The stoneflies eat the algae. The sunfish eat the stonefish. And then the herons eat the fish. So that's the correct order. A is what we should have gotten for that one. Okay, great work. Let's move on. This says the coral snake uses venom to help kill prey. Coral snakes have a coloration pattern that includes red, yellow, and black bands that circle its body. Many animals see the color pattern and avoid the snake because they know it is venomous. Some other snake species are not venomous, have similar coloration. As a result, many animals also avoid these snakes, mistaking them for coral snakes. Which type of relationship is shown by these non-venomous snake species? So this is mimicry. To mimic something means to copy it, and that's what these snakes are doing. These snakes are not venomous like the coral snake is. The coral snake is very venomous. These other snakes aren't. Animals know to avoid these coral snakes because they're so venomous. If a coral snake bites you or an animal, it's going to be bad. These other animals just copy their coloration to fend off predators. If you're copying something, that's usually mimicry here. So that's going to be the best answer choice. Great work. Let's go on to the next one. This says tapeworms attach themselves to the inner surface of the intestines in cows and consume some of the passing food material before the cow can obtain the material's nutrients. Which statement best explains the role the tapeworms play in relation to the cow? Okay, so looking at this one, there's a couple of different answer choices. I really like D for this one. It says the tapeworm is a parasite because it benefits from living inside the cow and harms the cow. When we're talking about parasitism, what's going on is that one organism benefits and the other one is harmed, and that's what's happening in this. The tapeworm gets free food, so that's a win. The tapeworm gets free food, so that's a win for the tapeworm. The cow is losing out on some of the nutrients, so the cow is being harmed by that relationship. If one organism benefits and the other one loses, that's parasitism. Okay, great work. Let's go on to the next one. This says, the table includes descriptions of 4 different types of relationships between organisms. Record the number of each relationship in the table to correctly identify which type of relationship each description represents. So what we want to do here is use these numbers to describe what type of relationships these are. Here's what I got for this one. I like 2, 4, 3, 1. Let's look at these real quick. It says, a king snake stalks a small mouse before constricting it and eating it whole. That is definitely a form of predation. In predation, this is usually one organism hunting another one. Here, the king snake is the predator and the mouse is the prey. The next one says, a tapeworm enters a host's digestive system and feeds on digested food. This is just like the question we were looking at. This is parasitism. Remember, in parasitism, this is one organism benefits and the other one loses. And that's what's happening in this description. The next one says, an oxpecker bird lands on the back of a rhinoceros and feeds on parasites while being protected from predators. We have this one as 3, which is mutualism. In a mutualistic relationship, it's a win-win. Both organisms benefit. How are organisms benefiting from this? Well, the oxpecker bird is getting a free lunch, right, because it feeds on the parasites, and the rhinoceros is getting rid of its parasites, which is a win. And so both organisms are benefiting. The oxpecker bird gets free food. The rhinoceros is getting its parasites removed. They're both winning, and so that's a mutualistic relationship. The last one we have is 1. It says barnacles grow on the skin of a whale, leaving it unharmed while filter feeding as the whale swims. So in commensalism, what's going on here is that one organism benefits and the other one is neither harmed nor hurt. It's just kind of a neutral for the other organism. Because the barnacle is filter feeding, it's benefiting, and the whale is unharmed. So it's not losing or winning. And so that's going to be commensalism. Great work. Let's move on to the next one. The graphs show global carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions, and global atmospheric CO2 levels between 1990 and 2010. Which statement best explains the effect of global CO2 emissions on the cycling of CO2 in the atmosphere? Okay, for this one, I really like the letter A. Let's read over that. Atmospheric CO2 levels are increasing because CO2 is being removed from the atmosphere slower than it is being released into the atmosphere. So that is correct. We are releasing a lot of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. A lot of that is human, some of it is natural. Some of the carbon dioxide is being removed. Remember, that happens in photosynthesis, but the photosynthesis is happening slower than we're pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So A is a great explanation of what's going on. Great work. Let's go on to the next one. This says, a farmer built a dam that prevented water from flowing into a pond. The diagram shows the changes to the pond over time. The question asks us to circle a word or phrase in each set of parentheses to describe the most likely reason for the changes between stages 1 and 4. So let's read over this. This says, as the amount of available water decreased, the number of woody tree species increased, and the number of plants growing in the water decreased. So for this, let's kind of look at what's going on. So the amount of available water. He put a dam up, so now there's less water. You can see that the pond is shrinking. From stages 1 to 4, there's less and less water in each one. So that's why the water's decreasing. The next one is the number of woody tree species increased. I don't really see any trees in this picture, and then over here I see a lot of trees. So it's definitely increasing here. And then the last one says, and the number of plants growing in the water decreased. Well, look at stage 4. There is no water. And so if there's no water, there's no plants growing in it. And so that's why that one's decreasing as well. Okay, great work. Just a couple more. Y'all hang in there with me. This says, study the 2 graphs. Part A says, circle a word in each set of options to explain a possible relationship between the data in the 2 graphs. Okay, so let's read over this. This says, the relationship between atmospheric carbon dioxide and concentration and the length of the growing season is most likely direct, because as atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration increases, the length of the growing season is also going to increase. Okay, so as time goes by, you can see that this is called a direct correlation. You can see how this one's going up, this one's going up. So as there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the growing season is longer. So that's a direct relationship. They're both increasing. All right, B says, increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration have likely caused global annual average temperatures to rise and plant photosynthesis rates to increase. These changes result in greater plant growth and more pollen production. Okay, so that's what I got for that one. I think that's going to be our best options. Let's move on to the next one. A teacher listed several natural events that at some time have occurred in certain locations across the United States. These events led to primary succession or secondary succession. It wants us to record an X in each row to match the 3 events that led to primary succession and the 3 events that led to secondary succession. So we have 6 things that happen, and it's our job to figure out which 3 of them is primary and which 3 of them are secondary succession. Let's read over these and see what we think. Landslides along a coast in California. That's going to be secondary succession. When we have secondary succession, what's really going on is we're not making new land. When this is flowing down, it's destroying some trees, but the soil is going to stay intact, and all the we're not starting from scratch, right? Okay, the next one says a barrier island formation in New Jersey. Well, because an island is forming, that means that it hasn't supported life up to this point, and that means it's going to be a type of primary succession. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This says advancing glaciers across Minnesota. When a glacier advances, it's going to reveal a lot of soil, a lot of ground that hasn't been used. It's been covered up by something. So as the glacier moves, it reveals new land. That's a type of primary succession. Okay, great work. The next one here says fire that released a lodgepole pine seed in Colorado. Okay, well, usually if it's fire, that's going to be secondary succession because we already have plants there, and it's just wiping out the current plants, but new plants are going to grow back pretty soon after. Number 5 says volcanic eruption and extensive lava flow in Hawaii. Okay, this one is going to be primary succession. As that lava flows and cools, it's going to make new land. And so that's going to be primary succession. That's going to be land that's never supported anything. And so we're starting from scratch on that one. The last one says straight line wind damage uprooting hardwood trees in Mississippi. Because the land has already supported life and the plant life is just being destroyed, that's going to be secondary succession. Okay, great work. Let's move on to the next one here. Okay, this says examples of ecological hierarchy are shown in the table. It asks us which table correctly identifies each example of ecological hierarchy. For this one, I like A, and let's take a look at this. Okay, so W here, right? W is saying a pride of lions in Kenya. A population is a group of similar animals, a group of species of animals in the same location. And it's telling us this. It's a pride of lions, so this is a group of animals that are the same in a location. That is a population, so that one is good to go. The next one says the eagles, snakes, mice, grass, and bushes, plus the rocks and the river in a canyon. Okay, that is definitely the ecosystem. Ecosystem deals with both living and non-living things. We have a lot of living things in this description. We have eagles, snakes, mice, grass, and bushes, but we also have the rocks in the river, which are non-living. And so that's the thing that makes up an ecosystem, living and non-living things. The next one says, an alligator in the Florida Everglades. That is an organism. An organism is one individual animal. And this says one alligator, so that one's good to go. The last one says the coyotes, black bears, trees, and porcupines that live in a forest. That is going to be a community. A community only cares about the living things and not the unliving things. These are all animals, and so this is going to make up the community. So thank you so much for following along with me today. Your teacher has some other work for you to do, so make sure to give that your best effort, and I hope everybody has a great day.